Well, a new poll out of Iowa finding former President Trump still holds a wide lead over his competition, sitting at 42% compared to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is at 19%. The poll also finding 52% of Republican caucus goers say they could still be persuaded to support another candidate. The Iowa caucuses are less than 5 months away. Joining me now, the Washington Examiner chief local correspondent and Fox News contributor Byron York. Byron, good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl.
We are ready to go. So first off, what are you expecting from tomorrow night? Do you think there's going to be a breakout star? Do you think that there's going to be someone like DeSantis who, as Michael Waltz said earlier on the show, needs to put on his body armor to get ready for all the attacks? What are you looking at?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of different agendas on the stage. I mean, you're going to have people like Doug Burgum and Asa Hutchinson, and the audience is going to be saying, who are these guys? We've never seen them before. They're going to be trying to introduce themselves. Vivek Ramaswamy is also in that category. Then you'll have, I think, established leaders like Tim Scott and Nikki Haley trying to make the case for themselves why they should go to a higher office. Chris Christie is going to be attacking Donald Trump. He won't be there, but he'll be attacking Donald Trump. And I think the one who really has the most to gain and the most to lose is Ron DeSantis, who really needs to show viewers why he is really the leader other than Trump, the leading candidate other than President Trump.
Amber Athey's on set with me. Go ahead, Amber.
Byron, some of these candidates are attacking Trump, yes, but others are saying that even though they like the former president, they feel like he can't win against Joe Biden. Yet, according to this poll, only 29% of these Iowa caucus goers have electability against Joe Biden as their number one criteria for selecting a candidate. They're much more likely to say they want to choose someone who aligns with them most on issues. How does that affect the strategy for those candidates who have been trying to differentiate themselves from Trump on Wednesday night?
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty conservative group taking part in the Iowa caucuses. They do want candidates who agree with them. But as far as attacking Trump, I think that's going to be a decision that each candidate makes differently. Obviously, as I said, Chris Christie is there to attack Trump. That's why he's in the race. But the others are thinking, they're looking at the polls. They're seeing former President Trump with a huge lead nationally among Republicans. And of course, this is a national and a worldwide audience for this. It's not just going to be watched in Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina. They know so many Republicans support former President Trump, and they want those Republicans eventually to come around and support them. And they feel that the way to do that is not by trashing Trump, which will make the supporters mad, but presenting themselves as a good alternative. So if something happens in the future where Trump slides or he's no longer in the lead, then they can capitalize on that development.
Byron, I think the emerging story is former President Trump's got a huge lead. He's way out in front, but a lot of people would consider another candidate. In other words, flexibility. I don't know if I buy that story entirely. Do you buy just how malleable the voter still is at this point?
Yeah, well, I can speak to Iowa specifically here because we have this new poll from there. But what voters are feeling there and what Republicans have been trying to figure out about the voters is how much of the Trump support is absolutely rock solid, not gonna change, and how much is softer. Is it somebody who could actually change their mind? And right now, the rock solid support is probably enough to win the Iowa caucuses. But there is a group of voters who feel like they kind of want to move on from all the drama of the Trump years. But on the other hand, they're still very attracted to Trump as a candidate. And I think, look, it's just common sense to see there's going to be a lot of developments between now and convention time. Trump is under 4 indictments. Who knows how all that stuff is going to play out? But we'll have to see how that happens. And it's not crazy for a voter to say, you know, I'd like to kind of see how this works out before I make a decision.
Absolutely. And look, Iowa Caucus Day is January 15th, folks. This is August.
Yeah.
So a lot can happen between now and then. So just to be clear, we want to reiterate, the RNC did officially announce last night the 8 candidates who are going to be on the stage tomorrow night for the first Republican presidential debate of 2024. We've talked about your expectations, Byron. But one of the things I thought that was pointed out by Andy Kessler in the Wall Street Journal yesterday was very clear. He said there could be a Mr. or Ms. Fix-It on that stage tomorrow night. Someone that says, here's how I'm going to fix the border. Here's how I'm going to fix the TSA. Here's how I'm going to deal with inflation. Here's how I'm going to deal with China. Is there that candidate on stage that you think would be presenting those ideas? Is Ron DeSantis going to finally come out and say, oh, by the way, I ended mask mandates. Oh, by the way, everybody moved from New York to Florida because of my policies. Where is that person?
Well, I think it certainly could be Ron DeSantis, but it could be the others. I mean, it could be Haley or Scott, and we haven't talked about Mike Pence yet. A lot of Republicans just don't like him because of his role in the Trump administration, specifically the end of the Trump administration. But I think most of the candidates believe that they have to make a case for themselves going forward. They're not going to talk about the 2020 election. They're not going to talk about things in the past. They're not going to talk about how great a president Donald Trump was. They're going to say, Joe Biden has messed this up, and I need to do this, this, and this to fix the situation. They all believe that that is what voters want to hear.
Byron, final thoughts, if you will, before you run. You know, you mentioned the Iowa polls, and I think it's very interesting that the team that did this Iowa poll, and this is Ann Seltzer, she said the contest may be, quote, closer than it may first seem. Polls are polls. We learned in 2016, polls are not always correct. Your thoughts?
Well, people who talk about politics always want to leave a little suspense in the story. But I actually looked at a historical chart this morning about Iowa caucus polls and results. And Trump has a 23-point lead. And only one time in the last 44 years has a candidate lost after having a 20-plus point lead. That was Ted Kennedy in 1980, who challenged a sitting president. Jimmy Carter was high in the polls in August, but by the time of the Iowa caucuses, Carter, who was the sitting president with all the powers of incumbency, took over and won. So it's not a really good example. So literally in 44 years of this kind of polling, we have not seen a candidate blow a 23-point lead and then lose. So not saying it can't happen, but Trump can lose a lot of altitude and still win the Iowa caucuses.
But to your point, he's also facing 4 separate indictments. So there's a lot that's at play that I don't think we've ever seen before. I know we've never seen this before. Ever.
We know it, yeah.
Byron York, come back anytime. It was great to see you.
Thank you.
All right, Byron York. Well, don't forget to tune in to Fox News and Fox Business for the first Republican debate. That begins tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, the debate will be simulcasted right here on Fox Business.